Welcome back. I apologize for the abruptness of the ending of the last video. When I teach this course in a classroom, it's generally 50 minutes or 75-minute class sessions, so it's kind of difficult for me to know where to split the slides that I use in the classroom to make these videos. That said, let's review. GIS uses a georelational model, which uses a relational database, which uses relationships between tables to link information together and manage it efficiently. There are four types of relationships: one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-one, and many-to-many. Depending upon the relationship, you use either a join or a relate to link the tables. One-to-one and many-to-one, you use a join. One-to-many and many-to-many, you use a relate. Okay, that said, let's move on. In ArcMap, the way you join tables, remember that would be for one-to-one and many-to-one, is you right-click on a feature class, you select join, and you do the join. What you end up doing is you choose a table when you right-click on a feature class. You choose the field that's going to be the unique field in that feature class. You choose the table that you want to join to your feature class and the field in that target table that's going to match up and make a linkage between the two tables. You can tell it to keep all the records or only the matching records. I'm going to try to go through these things a little bit quickly, and I really think it's a good idea for you to go through those demonstration videos, because you're not going to get a hang for how to do this really well unless you see it done and do it yourself. Okay, so what I've done here is I've taken the cities, major cities feature class, and I've joined all the information from the states feature class. Okay, so all of these fields came from the states table, all of these fields came from the cities table. So for each city in this feature class, I'm going to get all the information from whatever state that it's in, and I'm using the state abbreviation you can see to do the join. Okay. If I export this table, I'm going to get a whole new table, a whole new feature class that has all of these attributes in one place. Relating. How do you do relating? This is going to be for one-to-many and many-to-many. You do the same right-click on the feature class, and this time you select relate. Remember, relate is not going to make a new table. How do you do relate? When you right-clicked and said relate, you use the field that's the unique field in the source table, the feature class that you want to relate to that feature class, and the field in that feature class that's going to provide the linkage. And what will happen is, in this case, when you pick on a state, it will select all the cities that are inside of that state. So here in this case, I've selected what looks like a state, which was California, and in doing that, the relate went into the cities table and selected all the cities that are inside of California. There's another type of join that you can do. It's called spatial joining, and this is one of the places where the GIS is really powerful, and you can only really do this in the GIS, because what it's going to do is it's going to look at the spatial relationships between feature classes and join the attributes of one feature class based upon some type of spatial relationship with another feature class. So in this case, we're going to do a join based on spatial location, and here I have cities, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of the cities that fall within a state, and I'm going to join information about all those cities to the table for the state. So in this case, let's say I pick California. It's going to go out to the cities, get all the cities in California, sum up all of the values that are in that table, and join that to the states table. So here what we would have the sum of the population of all the cities that are within a state. Okay, there are 11 cities in this case that are within the state that's selected, and it's joined the information about all the cities into that. So that's called spatial join. Okay, so we've got this where information, or data, it's just locations, x, y's, maybe z's. We have this what information, which is the attributes. We can join those, we can relate those, we can do spatial joins. Once they're connected, which is a join or a relate, we can start asking questions. And that's the how does geography make a difference, and maybe even to the point of why does geography make a difference. We're going to ask these questions using what's called a query. Okay, a query is asking a question about the data, and a query is going to generally give you a subset of all the data. So you're going to say, of all the states, which ones meet this condition? So queries generally give you subsets. They give you existing geometry in the data. And keep that in mind, because when I start talking about things that aren't queries, you're going to see that overlays and things I'll talk about in the next video create new geometry. Queries don't create new geometry, they just give you subsets. So you can do this interactively in ArcMap. You can use the Identify tool, the Eye tool. You can use the Select tool to just pick a part of your map and see which features it is you've picked. And you can use attribute queries, and these attribute queries are going to allow you to use a specific language to ask questions of the data and return only a subset of the data. You can do a spatial query where you're going to ask questions about the spatial relationships or spatial locations of the data and have it return a subset of the data that meets those conditions. Identify and select, those are the ones you can do interactively. Just use the Eye tool to do identify, click on a feature, it'll tell you what it knows about that feature. You can do selections, this is a selection button. You can select by a whole bunch of different geometries, click and drag and drop, and you can select all the features that fit within whatever your selection geometry might be. Okay, these two queries are going to use something that's a language that the computer understands, and that's called structured query language. And what you can do is you can select by the attributes. You can ask why questions or how questions about the attributes that are associated with the data, or by locational characteristics. So there are two different types of selections. That just shows you how you do that in ArcMap. Okay, so what's a query? Query is a request for information from a database. We've got this relational database that links things either through relates or joins. We can ask a question of that joined data. Select by attributes, there's multiple ways to get to this point. What will happen is this type of window will pop up, and this is where you create the query using structured query language that will ask a question of your data. So the way that structured query language works is it has a set of clauses that you ask the question with. The first clause is the select clause. So I'm going to select certain fields, right? And in most cases, the way that this defaults is it's going to select all fields. So that's what this asterisk means. Select everything. A from clause tells it where to go look to make the selection. So what feature class or table are you going to look in? And the where is the condition that you want your question to answer. And that's using what's called a query string, and you have to build the query string down in this portion of the window to ask the question that you want to ask. So this is going to select everything. This is going to select everything from this feature class, which is the weather station's feature class, and this is the where. Down in here is where you'd build the query string right there. Okay, quick mention about syntax. When you look at the demonstrations and you do this in the labs, you'll have to deal with syntax. Query language is pretty specific, and so you need to be sure that you use the language that the computer's going to understand, otherwise it may give you back not really what you're asking but something else. Okay, here's an example of text data. Sometimes text data is in double quotes, sometimes it's in single quotes, sometimes it's actually in brackets, so you need to know what the syntax is about. One of the ways you can check on the syntax of a query is you can click on this verify button. And if the query seems like something the computer can understand, it will tell you that it was able to successfully verify your query. If you're using improper syntax, it'll give you a different answer. So in this case, I'm asking for a number. I'm asking for population in 2000 that's greater than what looks like 1 million people. So I'm going to select a subset of my data where the population is greater than 1 million. Okay? Don't put any commas in there. Everything's fine. If you tried to put population greater than 1,000,000 and you put commas in there, you click on the verify button, it's going to tell you you didn't use the right syntax. So remember to use this verify button. Okay, select by location is similar to select by attributes, but in this cases we're going to have a different window that we select from. So we're going to say select features from some source table that are related to some target table spatially in one way or another. So it's select features from the target layer. Okay, the target layer in this case would be flow lines, based on the source layer, water bodies, using a selection method, and these are the selection methods. And it turns out, you see a drop down here, there are a whole bunch of different selection methods. Okay, here's an example of that. What did I do? I selected features from counties, and the source that I'm using for my spatial selection is states, and I'm going to use only the selected states when I make my query. So in this case I've picked Idaho from the states feature class, and I'm going to select all the counties that touch the boundary of Idaho. And so when I apply that query, it goes out, it finds all of the counties that just touch the boundary of Idaho, and it selects those in the counties layer. Okay, this is kind of another shot that shows all the different spatial relationships that you can do. So if you want to explore spatial relations, spatial queries, depending upon what you're selecting, points, lines, polygons, from points, lines, polygons, you'll get a different set of selection methods to do that. Okay, next time I'm going to talk about some other really powerful operations, buffer and overlay and clip, and things that are going to give you back new geometry. So you can ask questions about your data and have it give you totally new geometry based upon the questions that you asked. But again, make sure you go through those demonstration videos and you spend some time practicing joins and relates and attribute queries and spatial queries, so that you'll get really good at that, and it'll just become second nature for you down the road when we start chaining these things together into a geoprocessing workflow.